Happy Thursday and welcome to today's episode of Tech Bites. And we've got a full house and a rockin' topic. We are going to talk about freedom of choice, how to future-proof your business with Veeam. I'm Rick Vanover, the Rickatron. We are live here, and I've got one of my go-tos, Kirsten. How are you doing today, Kirsten?
Hi, Rick. I'm doing good. Glad to be back here again on Tech Bites. And I am also very interested in learning more about, the freedom of choice and licensing. So really excited for this session today.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, licensing, the migration, all this stuff, it's a very interesting time in technology. So you know what? Even the Rickatron had to call a friend. So I'm dialed up one of the best. Matt Crape. Good day, Matt. How are you?
Oh, thanks, Rick. I'm doing quite well today, thank you. And much like Kirsten, this is a topic that really does intrigue me. Formerly as a customer, as a longtime Veeam adjacent, but things are always changing. And understanding where you sit in the environment, how you can maintain things without throwing everything out the window, it's really important. So it's great topic to be talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I love how you say Veeam adjacent. There's gonna be a time where it will be more with Veeam than just adjacent. And then the adult in the room, and I had to do that. Mr. Chris Spencer, good day, joining us from the ATX. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me here on this one. So excited! I get to watch these tech bites all the time, and it's really a pleasure to be able to speak with you. And our goal here is to give customers that freedom to choose and give them the ability to have access to all of the capabilities of the full Veeam data platform.
Yeah, fair shout, Chris. And every one of us agree, really, for all types of reasons in the audience, each of you watching. This is a really interesting time. I can't tell you how many questions I've had about platform migrations. In fact, Kirsten, was it like 2 or 3 weeks ago? We actually demoed a migration, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it was, there's a lot of interest. So I'm like, yo, I can do it. So what we've got today is a pretty compelling set of content. And just because Chris is Chris, I let him break the rule. He brought in more slides than I usually ask for. But let's switch over to the slides view here. And we're going to talk about freedom of choice. And, I'm going to throw this one first over to you, Chris. What does freedom of choice mean to you in the Veeam context?
It means that, no matter where you are, fully on-prem, dipping a toe into the cloud, you're full-blown hybrid, you're 100% cloud, or you're moving back and forth, you need the ability to use the products where they make sense for you and have a license that can follow you no matter where it goes. So as your digital transformation journey, maybe it's from physical to virtual to cloud, or maybe it's something else, but everyone's journey is unique, and we want you to be able to make that transformation and make that journey to fit your needs, not to fit anyone else's mold. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think that's a very good kind of context to get us started. And, Matt, I want to throw this one over to you. We're living in an interesting time, and I remember when the diagrams were just as simple: data center A, data center B. But is that what's going on nowadays?
Oh, absolutely not. Whether you're a small SMB or you're the largest enterprise out there, chances are you have some sort of hybrid environment, right? Things are being shifted around. You're sending data out to the cloud. Maybe you're pulling data in. You might have multiple hypervisors in your environment, all sorts of different workloads. What used to be fairly simple to protect, has gotten more complex, really in the sense of just what you need to protect and where you're protecting it, right? So sometimes it's a matter of, hey, you know what? We put everything in one cloud, but we actually want to back it up to a different cloud to make sure that we adhere to things like the 3-2-1 rule. Even though it's cloud, you still need to make sure your data has multiple copies, ideally in multiple locations. But the real pain when it comes to something like this is sometimes there's overhead associated with how do I do this without introducing a bazillion different tools into my environment, right? That's really where that flexibility is key. Being able to use the same tools to protect your data, to move your data, to be part of the data's life cycle wherever you are. So, this is kind of like a loose framework of what we're seeing more and more today. And the thing that we really want to avoid is any sort of lock-in, right? You don't necessarily want to be tied to a specific location or platform because maybe your backup software only protects that one location. You also don't want to be tied there because of things such as, hey, you know what? I don't have the flexibility to move elsewhere. So that's really something we're going to be digging into a little bit here.
Those are all really good points, Matt. And yeah, we've heard and we've seen a lot of organizations today have that hybrid cloud environment. But how can Veeam help make the management of this environment easier, especially when it comes to protection and licensing?
Well, that's one of the fantastic things about, the Veeam universal licensing is it truly is universal in that once you pop that license key into your environment, it just unlocks so much other things for you. It's not just a matter of, oh, we can only, do hypervisor stuff now. No, we can actually spread it out, whether it's object storage, NAS shares, physical machines. It really gives you a lot more flexibility once you make that transition.
So Matt, you mentioned lock-in, and this is a topic that's come up a lot, current conditions, but I want to actually kind of take a sideways view on it. Like if we take a look at a stack right here, when I grew up in IT, I was worried about lock-ins of maybe a database platform but now if we're thinking about, physical infrastructure platforms, these are potentially two different layers of lock-in that can really give our organizations and our customers, just overwhelming amounts of just stress when it comes to running their business. And clouds are yet another platform, multiple operating systems. It really is also a good kind of point to realize where we are right now. And I should have looked at this slide because we've had Hyper-V for over 10, but I'll let it slide, Chris. But Chris, kind of put us in a mall map. Where are we now? I know Veeam is much more than a virtual machine backup. This platform is real. That was the whole theme of last year's Veeam On with the expand message. But where are we now with supporting the needs of our customers?
Well, at this point, as you can see, we've got multiple hypervisors on here for many, many years, as you stated, including Red Hat Virtualization, KVM. For those of you listening, there's going to be another one, Oracle Linux KVM, that will be available next week. So just a heads up on that. But other things that we do, the three clouds, we've had those for over 3 years. And in fact, we're coming up on versions 8 of AWS, 7 of Azure, and 6 of Google Cloud. So that's 4 years of innovation in those collective capabilities. We have, as Matt also mentioned, NAS, file shares, object storage. So any unstructured data that you need, all the physicals, the Windows, Linux, Mac OS, IBM AIX, Solaris. We also have containers for many of customers who are looking for alternatives to maybe the hypervisor that they're using. They might look at cloud, they might look at containers, they might look at other hypervisors. So we've got a lot of coverage here, and all of this is available with that Veeam Universal License.
Now, Kirsten, I want to throw this one over to you. You're celebrating 10 years here at Veeam this year, if I'm keeping score right. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the time that I threw that physical server on your desk and I'm like, all right, we have this agent and I want you to learn it. And you were like, what is this? Because you had only worked on virtual machines. Do you remember that time? You remember that?
Yeah, I do. It was a really great learning experience for me. I got to, set up a physical server, install the agent on it, take a backup. So it's been really great to see how much Veeam has evolved to support the different workloads that our customers are using. And even when you think about, freedom of choice, before, we only had, a certain type of licensing, but we've expanded that to be able to support you, whether you're migrating workloads between hypervisors, you're going to the cloud. And it's just really great to see how Veeam has continued to innovate to help our customers make it simple, flexible, and reliable,
Yeah, for sure. And Matt, let me go back to your adjacencies back before you were adjacent and when you were, an end user. In fact, I think the first time I met you, we presented at a user group together type of thing, but you had seen Veeam grow through the years. Put yourself back in those end user days when a new data source was introduced. What kind of things went through your head on how do I roll that into Veeam?
Oh, absolutely. That was definitely a challenge, and most of the time it was a matter of, well, back in the day, hey, can I actually virtualize this application? In some cases, you couldn't. So, shout out to Veeam Endpoint Backup way back in the day before the agent names. When that came out, that actually solved a lot of problems for me because now I had some things that had to be physical that all of a sudden I could start backing up, right? And I was able to bring that right into the environment that I already had built out, my infrastructure, my repositories, all that sort of stuff. So it really was fantastic in that regard. And I know we touched briefly on migrations, but as we're talking about agents and physical backups, one of the things that still kind of blows my mind is that we could take a physical backup from on-premises and restore that as a VM or right into the cloud for you as well. If you want to talk about migrating workloads or even just a matter of how do I restore this physical machine if I don't have a physical machine restored to, we've got you covered with that.
Yeah, and this is incredible. And one thing I want to highlight when Chris rattled off some of the version numbers, especially around the hyperscale public cloud, I remember it distinctly. It was December 2019. I'm sorry, the Wikipedia does that. It just has dates in its memory. But that's when the very first AWS backup came out from Veeam. And then, in 2020, then we had the NAS backup. Just so much technology has come into this platform that it's actually kind of it's a reason for pause for a lot of our customers because they came to us for virtual machine backups, but all of these other things don't exist. Like there is no concept of a socket for NAS or in the cloud or enterprise apps and things like that. So in my opinion, it really makes us have to reassess what we are looking at today. And, this is the menu. Chris, walk us through if I'm walking into the cafe Veeam, what do I get when I order something?
Yeah. Thanks for making that transition. So, as many of you know, last year, just over 1 year ago, with the release of version 12, we made the switch from selling and marketing Veeam Backup and Replication and Veeam Availability Suite to marketing what we call Veeam Data Platform. And the response has been phenomenal. We've had such great response on this one. And let's just do a little breakdown of what this means. Now, there are 3 primary tiers here. We've got Foundation, Advanced, and Premium. And as you can see on the right side, Foundation includes the basics of Veeam Backup and Replication. And I say basics to call out that now going forward, as you step up the stack, there are going to be components of Veeam Backup and Replication that you only get at the advanced and premium level. That includes the advanced Veeam Threat Center that has both Veeam 1 as well as VBR components in it. That includes the Yara rules for Yara rules analysis. This is great in our Sure Backup capabilities. KMS, Key Management System, and KMIP, ServiceNow integration. And other SIM integrations. You're going to see many, many more of these integrations come in, and they're going to be landing at the advanced tier. So whether that be the likes of many of the cybersecurity players that are out there, maybe a Splunk or a CrowdStrike, just expect to see a lot more of those in the very, very near future. So when you move up to the premium tier, not only do you get all of the capabilities of Veeam Backup and Replication and all the capabilities of Veeam 1, but you also get those capabilities in the Veeam Recovery Orchestrator. Many of you have been around with us long enough to know the capabilities of that orchestrator. We've called it the Availability Orchestrator and the DR Orchestrator, but now we've just gone Recovery Orchestrator because it's not just DR. But Foundation, Advanced, and Premium, those are the tiers of Veeam Data Platform. If we go to the next slide.
Well, hold on. I got to put someone on here. Kirsten is just hitting me on the chat sideways. Kirsten, what do you want to say?
Well, I just really like looking at this because you can see, how many more features that you get access to that can really help with, staying cyber resilient, right? So if you want to get access to, the Veeam Threat Center, the Yara rules analysis, ServiceNow integration, you're going to be able to do that through this second tier of licensing that's available to you, that advanced license. And then when you think of orchestration, you can, have access to that as well. And I'm looking at it, and so it looks like, there's three different things, three different products I get access to, right? So I only need one single license that's going to give me access to all three. I'm not going to have to go in there and attach a separate license to, each, product. I can literally just get my one universal license. I can stick it in there and I get access to all three product sets, which is, really helping keep it simple instead of having to go through multiple people to get different licensing. So really great, this really great breaks it down for us.
Yeah, and be sure to watch our previous, I think it was last week, was it, where we did the Threat Center deep dive? I can't remember, but that was
we do have a really great one, all demo, describing the Threat Center, how you can use it, what it means. And hopefully, we can talk a little bit more in the upcoming Tech Bites about some of these Yara rules, the ServiceNow and SIM integrations. So maybe we can get some content out there for you guys as well there.
There you go. You said it first. We are climbing the ladder of Cafe Veeam, and we are going to show some of these up-level features. So one of these constructs, and Kirsten mentioned it, Chris mentioned it, the universal license. And, friends, this is something that's really, I think, important. And sockets don't exist in the cloud. NAS, unstructured data, doesn't compute. This type of view here of the benefits of the universal license, and I'm just going to say it, we've got something coming later in the year. It's going to be consumable by the universal license, and everybody's going to want it. So if I get in trouble, it's been real, it's been fun, but I said it, something's coming, okay? But anyways, launched
at least
in 20
two things. Two.
Maybe. Hey, Dave Russell likes to say you can do anything you want on your last day of work. Anyways, let's be serious. Like I said, I only have one adult in the room. I can be raw like that. I had a cookie today, so friends, I'm a little twitchy. If I look at this list, Chris, one thing I want to highlight that was a common misconception early on. Like if I have an enterprise app like an Oracle database server, SQL server, if I image-based backup protect it, say physical or VM, and I have these enterprise apps where I'm using the RMAN plugin, the SQL plugin, etc. Do I consume two VUL for that, or is it awesome and smart?
It's awesome and smart. You only consume one. That's right.
There we go. Cool. So walk us through this chart, the ingredients list of the VUL.
Yeah. And let's be honest, a lot of folks don't really love thinking about licensing because it might mean some change on your behalf, but let's talk about how simple and how much it does empower you to really make a lot better decisions in the future. So Veeam Universal License was launched in 2019, and so it's been around for over 5 years now, if I'm doing my math. And it accounts for all of the Veeam data platform new business, as you can imagine. Our goal here is to get all of the capabilities into the customer's hands. So whether physical, virtual, or cloud, enterprise apps, unstructured data, workstations, you name it. And we wanted to make it easy for customers here. So as you can see, the VUL supports everything on the list and all of the new features that will be coming. The sneak peek secret item that Rick was teasing about will be included here as well. But if you're a socket user, we understand it might be easy to stay with the sockets, but we want to just highlight that, with sockets, you can only support two hypervisors. Everything else on this list requires a Veeam Universal License. And with those sockets, you can't move from on-premises to the cloud. You can't move across multiple locations. You have to buy those sockets for your specific infrastructure pieces. So you're kind of locked into that hypervisor and that location only. And as we've mentioned here, a lot of folks are looking into other options and other platforms right now. I'm not going to say why, but I think you guys know why. But we want to give you that ability to have that flexibility and freedom that if you want to jump from one hypervisor to another or from one cloud to another, this license gives you the flexibility to do that.
So, Chris, a couple of things. I'm going to work the bottom and up. I actually speak with one of my colleagues of the place I used to work before, Veeam, and the one system I hated was a massive unstructured data that was on a NAS. But you know what? That thing's been converted to object storage. So that's a real example of and it's not on the cloud. That's a real example of like the data and the applications that organizations use would change. But when you refactor it to protect a NAS share or protect an object storage bucket on the Veeam side, there's no Veeam cost difference. It's just the VUL of the unstructured data. I want to also highlight the second to the last one there, because the way I read it, it kind of reads funky, but workstation versus physical server, the 5 physical agents, and this is really visible, I think, most in Windows, but I guess it exists on the other ones as well. But workstation is kind of a class of capability. No application-aware image processing, no server CBT driver, stuff like that. And it's 1/3 or so. One VUL gives you 3 instances. I don't want people to think it costs more for physical in the VUL world. And, just saying that workstation license is 1/3 of a VUL. You can get a lot of mileage out of that. This computer I'm talking to you on is protected by Veeam in that way. Kirsten, if I were to ask you to look at the list here, what's one of the things that are kind of new that have struck you and really Veeam has a very good protection result on some of these other services?
Yeah, I would say, just being able to protect those enterprise applications and databases with the universal license. So not having to, purchase an additional license for that's different than you already have. And then also, I would say the public cloud. So when you think about what if, your production site goes down and the only way to restore is to go to the public cloud. You don't even have to worry about, calling anybody up. You already got a license that's going to protect those workloads. You're going to be able to restore to the cloud. So that's what I would say as well. And if you take a look at some of the limitations, right? If you think about, you can only get socket licensing for 2 hypervisors only. That's really kind of putting you, not giving you all that freedom. So if you want that freedom and you want that flexibility, the universal license, it's pretty clear that's the way that you should go.
Yeah, and the 2 hypervisors really comes down to a point in time and integration and implementation. VMware and Hyper-V are historically socket-based. And then the other ones architecturally were built with a part of the platform we don't really talk about called platform services that extends different modules to Veeam backup and replication. And friends, this has paved the way for the platform to grow and climb the ladder at Cafe Veeam. All right, let's bring it home here a little bit. So I'm all about the myth busting, and Chris, I'm going to put you and Matt up on the edge here. Are these really some of the objections to migrating to this type of license model?
Yeah, we've heard these over and over again since 2019 of, oh my gosh, moving to VUL will be more expensive. Oh, migrating will be a hassle. I'll have to change things, or it takes my flexibility away. And I'm like, well, I don't know how that really works when it adds more flexibility. But others have been, oh, it doesn't allow me to burst. Maybe I need to increase my VM count, at the drop of a hat. And I can't do that with a workload specific license or a per workload license. And then, the one that I hear quite commonly is, oh, my business requires perpetual. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. We have an answer for that. But yeah.
Well, these are all good, but I'm going to make you the bad cop and I'm going to make Matt the good cop here. So Matt, walk me through kind of the promised land here. How does it look when people go down the path of VUL?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So the first point, it's more expensive. No, it's not, right? You feed this into essentially what's a relatively simple math formula and get the number of volts spit out to you. But the migration cost is basically your renewal, right? There's nothing hidden in there, no secret sauce going on. It's very straightforward.
And this is for existing socket customers, mind you. We're speaking to those of you who've held out and you didn't want to move away from your sockets, and now's really the time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hear that migration is hard. No, it's not. How could it be hard when you're actually simplifying your licensing setup? I get flashbacks to when I used to have to sit there with a large spreadsheet, 40, 50 different rows in there for all these different license keys I had to keep track of depending on what workload I was working with, what software. This takes care of all that for you, right? You could just work with your team, work with your VAR, your reseller, and say, hey, you know what? I want to look at migrating. Let's get this ball rolling. We've got so much put in place to make that seamless transition for you. Yeah, Vol takes flexibility away. No, it's literally, our universal license. Hey, we showed you how you can take your workloads and pretty much move them wherever you want. It gives you that freedom to put things where you need them. Just because they're somewhere today doesn't mean that it will be there tomorrow. You might need to move to a different strategy, a different partner. Who knows what the future holds? And that's really the flexibility that you get with Vol. And one of the cool things to me is the bursting, right? Starting with V12, you can actually burst up to 20% of your capacity, which I don't know how many other vendors out there kind of give you more or less free licensing, especially for when you need it. So if you have a big chunk of workloads coming in that you need to protect that maybe you weren't aware of, or maybe you weren't budgeting for, it's not like we're just going to shut you off. We give you that flexibility to help you with the unforeseen, because frankly, that's what backups are for those unforeseen events. And lastly, my business requires perpetual. You know what? That's usually a myth. Usually it's a matter of you may not necessarily understand why you think that's the case. But even if that is the case, you can still get Vol perpetually. So there really are a lot of common myths that people may not realize, are just that. They're myths. Vol really is not complicated when you get down to it.
So a couple of thoughts on my side. So first of all, I've been at Veeam. This is my 14th year. I came across one situation where the perpetuality of a license made sense. And by the way, there is a VUL perpetual, so the universal capabilities. And this was a situation where it was a country. I don't like to use the word third world, but let's just say kind of a challenged economy. And they got to prepare for government stoppages and, just budget shortfalls and political distress that impacted some of their, constant operations. And so that was what I thought of a valid use case. And the other thing I'll highlight, correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, this 20% burst is when you, during the install, log in with your license entitlement ID to the customer portal. So, that traffic is shaped right to veeam.com. Little side tip, that will turn on the AI assistant for you. That's cool, right? So that's a really nice plus that comes with some of this new stuff as well. Hey, I love it. Thank you for myth busting. Now, Chris, what can people do with this information? I mean, there's a lot of benefits, but how do we put it in play? Where do they go to get more information?
Yeah, we're really looking for customers to take that next step and really consider what a migration to VUL looks like for them. It's an easy upgrade, no reconfiguration, as Matt said. It's the lowest price ever. It is the same as your socket renewal, so it's not like you're going to be paying more next month if you migrate. In fact, you'll have a lot more capabilities, and furthermore, we know those socket prices are going to continue to index at a higher clip. I have insight on how that looks going forward, and we know that the VUL price increase has been less than inflation over the past 5 years, under 3% year on year. So we know how our goal is to keep that very consistent over time and not to gouge customers on that one. Fully featured, fully portable, no gimmicks, and our our goal here is reach out and check out this migration opportunity. You can look at the URL here, the free ransomware upgrade.html link. It really does give you the power to get all of those additional capabilities that are available with that full license. And you can do it really simply. You can convert yourself right now with a non-extension migration. That just means, hey, you're converting the license over. You get access to all those capabilities right now with $0 outlay. Or you can contact your renewal rep and do this when the time is right for you. When your renewal is coming due, you'll probably be getting contacted by your renewals rep already. So,
yeah, fantastic. And Chris, I recommend to the audience, definitely talk to your Veeam rep or your authorized partner. The value is here, the capabilities are here. And I'll give you just like the big Captain Obvious thing. For those of you using our products, you don't want 3, 4, 5 different backup products. If you're not using Veeam on these other elements of the platform, now's the time. All of these different capabilities are iterated several times in the market. There's no better time to back up with Veeam like the present. All right, couple of things I want to highlight on the future coming up next week. This one's going to be awesome. On the 19th, Industry Insights. This is a good one. 5 key insights to prepare for the worst day of your life. Whoa, bad things happening to good data. That's going to be a good one. Also on the 21st, the Tech Byte stream, I'll be back with Michael Cade. I'll be back with Julia and Matt Bader. They're going to be live at KubeCon and Cloud Native Con in Europe. I'm going to get the 411 of what's going over there in the K8 land. All right, and then big thing, most important thing, we're getting ready to rock out with Veeam. And I got to tell you, on the 18th, so Monday, we are going to start launching Veeam content on the online experience. I got a couple secret nuggets, including that AI assistant that you can consume already. So just go to veeam.com. All right, Kirsten, thank you so much for rocking it with me on the stream.
Yeah, thanks, Rick.
All right, Matt Crape, great to have you back. Thank you for that.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Chris Spencer, thank you for putting up with my shenanigans as always.
I love it. Thank you.
All right, and a big thank you to Jeffrey, our producer, Felicia as well in Dallas. And thanks for watching, everyone. That concludes our stream today.